in the SEC for Brian Kelly on the field, we know is going to be difficult as it is for everyone else. Toughest conference in the country, of course, toughest division in the country. Well, it appears as though it's going to be difficult for him off the field as well. So he's going to have to kind of deal with what Lon was just telling us. First year hazing to a certain extent. So welcome in everyone to our live stream for the next 60 minutes or so. LSU Tigers talk right here on the Voice of College Football. And to help us do it, of course, we got Lon Phillips Sullivan on the line from LSU Odyssey. Lon.
Okay. What's up, Mark? What's up?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. What's up, everybody? Everybody that will be watching this present and in the future. What's up?
Yeah, so we are currently on our main channel. We're also on the LSU channel, so please subscribe there. You get a ton of content from Lon there. We also have Carter on from LSU Power Hour on a regular basis, myself, and of course, Lon again, where you catch the bulk of his work, the full throttle, start to finish, A to Z, LSU Odyssey. Get on over there right here on YouTube. Also, the website, lsuodyssey.com. Brian Kelly's performance at SEC Media Days. This is, something that every coach who enters the league for the first time has to experience, because it is the creme de la creme of media day coverage, of course, with the SEC, with the amount of media, the attention, the SEC network, and the full spotlight.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody was there. Tim Tebow was there. Marty Smith from ESPN. Late kick with Josh Pate. Even though Louisiana local media was well represented. Jacques Doucet. I got some questions in there. Ron Higgins got a question or two in there with Brian Kelly, but a lot of different media there, a lot of different heavy hitters. There's some personal reasons why I couldn't go that way that are coming very soon. Some good reasons, but I'll be down there very soon. I'll be down south very soon. But wish I could have been there. But everything looked like it was pretty damn good time, especially with the last few years. Considering COVID restrictions and all that, it looked like the floodgates were open.
Yeah. So mention to everyone who did not catch the coverage on the SEC network or maybe anything online, what was in store for Brian Kelly as he took the podium.
Immediately, Greg Sankey, he's doing this joke that I think kind of landed flat, where he's talking about, Brian Kelly is someone who dances, and I'm doing a dance lesson with my daughter for her wedding, and it's not videotaped like yours is, Brian, and, Kelly also goes up there after Sankey said, introduces him like that. And literally it says TikTok dance champion on the SEC network, I believe, underneath his name as his title. So there was some hazing as well. I feel, from the SEC, and kind of like this gauntlet he had to pass and get through the Lions' Den. And Mark, crazy fact. This was Brian Kelly's first SEC. Well, sorry, actually, no conference. First ever, no matter what the conference is, media day since 2009. First media day of any kind since 2009 for Brian Kelly, and with so many curious about where LSU's headed, if Brian Kelly is the real deal, if Brian Kelly can recruit Louisiana, all that type of stuff. All those questions were, more of the big picture questions. Is he going to fit in Louisiana? His move from Notre Dame was kind of touched on. He fended them off, maintained some control, seemed to show comfort after, he got up there and he kind of had a little bit of a, kind of a moment where he took a deep breath. But for me, it seemed like he used his humor to kind of take control of the meeting, of his moment up there, and turn it over to questions very quickly. There was a few questions about Notre Dame, of course. trying to get him to kind of judge Notre Dame, their worthiness for certain conferences, and he deflected it beautifully, Mark. Complimented the Notre Dame admins and moved on. But as far as discussing LSU, Kelly really did well, and I feel more in tone than in words. Like, I believe Kelly conveyed that message, more of a business approach from LSU's coaches down to the players. Um, I feel like the college media elite have now seen Brian Kelly finally, and they're going to extremes. Either, wow, I want on that bandwagon, or they're still skeptical, especially with what's going on with the roster and that type of stuff. But most feel LSU has hired the right guy. That seems to be the consensus. He talked about NIL, shutting down Tiger Details, Ron Higgins, the great Ron Higgins, assertion that LSU were behind on NIL. Saying that they could compete with anybody, saying that the funds for the collectives weren't behind anyone. I think that's kind of a hint at how much money LSU's boosters had to dump into contracts and paying off the last staff, paying the new staff, all of that. So, but he's saying they can compete with anybody on the NIL front. I think that maybe have shocked a few people, and people are kind of coming around to Brian Kelly, and I'm saying, how come it took until SEC Media Days for them to get that, to understand that Kelly could be a success here? It's interesting, Mark.
Now, Lon, when it comes to the three players that Brian Kelly selected to attend Media Day, so understand for anybody out there that's not real familiar with the Media Days approach regiment, there, it's a statement to be made by the coach and by the program in terms of what players are selected. So it's not necessarily the three best players on the team. There's a certain thought to giving, obviously, some attention to the offense and the defense. So you want a balance of 2-1 or 1-2 for one thing, because you want representatives from both sides of the ball. And then the other thing is to take into consideration, leadership, who are doing the right things in the program, not just who are the best players. So in regards to who showed up for LSU and who was selected by Brian Kelly, do you have any insight into that? How do you feel about those selections and how they performed?
Absolutely, Mark. You just said it. Leadership. And, that's why someone like Jack Besh, who's only the third ever sophomore in LSU history, was selected to represent at Media Days. Not only is he more mature than a lot of his peers, but he also shows a lot of locker room leadership. And you saw a common thread that I could find from Jack Besh, sophomore, and then the junior defenders, Mike Jones Jr. at linebacker, and BJ Ojolari, defensive end, was that they all seem to be SWAT leaders, this accountability team that Brian Kelly has formed, kind of the players policing themselves in a way. And I feel like, that was kind of the thread. The guys who led the locker room and really could represent the program in the best way, because he chose some guys who had, all three of these guys played for Orgeron. They were there for the transition into Brian Kelly. And so they kind of understood they were going to get the questions, about Orgeron and what happened. And, it surprisingly I didn't hear too many, intense ones that they had to take, but anyone that came their way, they handled beautifully. Jack Besh was able to just say, hey, I respect Coach Ed Orgeron. Without him, I didn't have a chance here. And then moved on and said, Kelly is an absolute chess master, and basically was saying how he's using strategy and all sorts of stuff to get LSU where they're going. But Mike Jones Jr. looked great with the mic. Mike Jones Jr. looked great on the mic. Mike Jones, he was fantastic. He looked like he just was ready to hug everybody in the room. Like, I'm so glad to be here. Someone who didn't take a moment of that privilege for granted. And I think he's going to have a hell of a year. Even Greg Sankey stopped him in the hallway. I heard from some one of these LSU local reporters saying that Sankey stopped him and said, hey, how's it going? How's the transfer from Clemson? How's it been at LSU? And there was a lot of, comparing Clemson to LSU, and it seemed like Mike Jones Jr. more than satisfied with, his time at Clemson, but this is really something that could propel him. And B.J. Ojulari, this was a special time, Mark, because, this is him returning to Georgia, his home state. And, with a brother in the NFL, Aziz doing well with the Giants, and, his Nigerian heritage being on display, being showcased and being talked about, being asked about. People really got to know B.J. Ojulari, the person, a lot more, I think, for the first time. And I was really happy to see that. We've tried to show that in our pieces and interviews, but even though we've interviewed him a handful of times, Ojulari, he's a very private dude. And so getting the personality out of him was really cool to see from the SEC Media Days, although they stuck to the script a lot of the time, Mark, to be honest.
Talking LSU football here on the first day of SEC Media Days. And we got, of course, Lon Philip Sullivan on the line from LSU Odyssey. So get on over there and check out in-depth coverage of LSU football. And we will let you know that we are going to provide here at the Voice of College Football, thanks to Lon. We will have a live stream fall camp kickoff. So whether that's going to be maybe the night before fall camp opens, or maybe that night, or that just somewhere in that first couple days as a kickoff to fall camp and LSU live stream with got Carter coming on here. We got Lon. We'll have a good time talking LSU football with all of you and taking your comments and questions. And that should be a good time.
The Odyssey is misspelled, Mark.
Oh,
but yes, definitely the fall camp. I am fall camp kickoff. I'm excited. Was there any plans for who will be on? Is it just going to be me solo? Are we going to have a few people
like
on?
I say, Carter.
Carter's going to be on? Okay, fantastic. Carter's awesome. I'm excited for that because there's a lot to talk about with LSU in these positions with fall camp in mind, because quarterbacks, that's another thing Kelly was asked about, the quarterbacks. And Kelly, everyone wants to know who's going to be LSU's quarterback. Who's going to be LSU's quarterback? And he didn't really give too many hints, although when he, rattled off the quarterbacks' names, he said Jaden Daniels first, Miles Brennan second, and Garrett Nussmeier third. But he also mentioned the quarterback who's going to start for LSU has to do these three things. That's take care of the football. Can they hit the ball to the playmakers and just get it out of their hands and get the ball to the playmakers? And three, can they make plays in the backfield? Can they escape pressure? Can they make plays themselves as the quarterback? And it was just very interesting. I think he slipped at one point saying my guy, Garrett Nussmeier. I haven't heard or seen the footage of that yet, and I don't recall him. I just watched the interview again before I would make that judgment, and I don't think he says it in there in the main SEC Media Days on the podium interview. He could have in one of the side interviews, but very interesting stuff, because Nussmeier, you could argue, has the full package there for that team. But the questions were thrown around, Mark. The questions were thrown around, and Kelly, he knew how to deflect them. I think he knew how to deflect them, but it was still very interesting how to read into what Kelly's doing, his body language. That can be a trap, because what you think might be really wrong with that guy, because he's sometimes really unpredictable.
So everyone, leave your comments and questions in the live chat. We will get to them and deliver them to Lon. Again, Lon Philip Sullivan, LSU Odyssey. Get on over there. Brian Kelly had made a comment when he was with the ESPN guys that I realized that this is LSU, and there's no honeymoon. There's no you got a year to break in kind of thing. I need to win football games immediately. Tim Tebow also made a statement to him about having better players at LSU, or these are the kind of players you're gonna have at an LSU, Georgia, Alabama versus at Notre Dame. I don't know if that was a bit of an overstatement, but uh, those are some of the angles that were taken as well. Um,
I think it's true. I think it's true. I think he is going to have better players. I think overall than he did at Notre Dame. I think that's going to. I think if the recruiting continues in Louisiana, even just at an average, he would still be able to surpass that, especially with what they're doing nationally. If that continues to even just stay where it is, if not continue to grow, which it will, I believe with this staff kind of becoming more familiar in living rooms across America. But it's interesting. It's interesting what Kelly's building because I don't think anyone's expecting them to win the national championship in 2022. I don't even think most of these people, these college media elite, the big deciders, are expecting them to win it in 2023. But, you know, if Kelly can absolutely recruit the state of Louisiana, which is the key to winning a lot of these national championships for LSU, Joe Burrow, of course, coming out of the state of Ohio, of course, but look at everyone who's surrounding him. 9 out of 10 guys, state of Louisiana. 2003 team is pretty much just the same thing. 2007 team as well. Even the 2011 team that went to the title game got defaced by Alabama, our arch nemesis, which we will need to get revenge for at some later date, Mark. But Kelly, I think that's what he wants to do. I think he wants to come down there and he sees everything that he can do. He saw everything he could do at Notre Dame with some handcuffs on, with being kind of strapped down and say even having like just one arm operable. And now he's got both arms operable. He's got two hands and, he can recruit those 5 stars. He has the staff that have the work ethic to go after these guys, the top shelf guys in every nook and cranny of this country. And that national footprint with LSU, and then you have national footprint guys selling it. It's a fantastic marriage. And then you take at the other half of this staff, led by the godfather of Louisiana, Frank Wilson. You really have something cooking here, and especially if LSU can finish strong in this class in the state of Louisiana, Mark, it would send a big message. Tim Tebow, I don't think he's wrong because you can't say that Notre Dame and what the players they were generating, the recruiting classes they were generating, bested LSU's over the last 10, 12 years since that Kelly was there. And so if Kelly can even just continue in that vein, which I think he might even excel what was going on before, Mark, don't you think? I mean, where do you see Kelly in all of this with LSU? What are your expectations for this team, with this program, with Kelly? I know you're a Kelly fan.
Well, I would stop short of calling myself a Brian Kelly fan.
Yeah, you seem to think of him more positively.
I have ranked him higher than just about anyone that I have come across in coaches' rankings. My offseason coaches' rankings, I placed him, was he 4th or 5th in the country? So, yeah, I think a lot of Brian Kelly and what he accomplished at Notre Dame and what he's accomplished his entire head coaching career. Every stop has been a considerable improvement and upgrade. So I would think that LSU's recruiting during Brian Kelly's stay at Notre Dame, which takes us back to 2010, that LSU's recruiting classes have generally been top 5 to 10 in the country. And Notre Dame's classes have been over the last half of Kelly's tenure have been in that same range.
Yeah.
Now, it took him a while to raise the recruiting standards to that level.
I was meaning like overall, just the comparison. But yes, Notre Dame has had a massive improvement. As I think a commenter just said, Marcus Freeman absolutely killing it out there. Number one.
See, that's what I was going to hit you with, Lon. Is anyone in LSU not with the team, not within the administration, but with the periphery, the fan base. Are they taking note of what Marcus Freeman's doing at Notre Dame and looking at Brian Kelly and saying, okay, you did well at Notre Dame, but look at Marcus Freeman now, and maybe thinking a little less of Brian Kelly at this point?
That's an interesting question, because I've seen that type of rhetoric. I've seen that type of those type of comments, but I don't think it's anything really like that. I think it's more that Marcus Freeman, is continuing something that he's begun. A lot of these relationships that he's absolutely turning into commitments right now are relationships he's worked on during the Kelly era. It's a marathon. It goes over a few years, and so I'm not saying that it was because of Kelly that he got those, but I'm saying that once he took the head coaching position, Marcus Freeman, it was an easy transition for those players that he was recruiting to say, "Oh yeah, I'll go with him," rather than the players that maybe were committing to LSU because of Orgeron, or had interest in Orgeron Tigers, who took off because of Kelly's hire, like Aaron Anderson and Omarion Miller, a few of those type of those players. But I really don't think it's the same thing. I really don't think. I think it's a weird comparison. I think it's two different jobs, two different footprints. I don't really see Marcus Freeman chasing every recruit at Catholic High, or going up into Shreveport and trying to get guys. I really don't see that from Marcus Freeman. But at the same time, they're absolutely killing it at Notre Dame with what they're able to do right now.
So LSU's two most recent commits for this 2023 class, we got Paul Mubenga. Did I pronounce that right?
Yep, another offensive lineman out of Buford. This is a school where we've got all the Ferguson brothers out of, and Quentin Skinner. So this is a pipeline that's been going on for a long time with Buford High and LSU, and under a few different coaches. Mark, Buford High, Georgia, seems to turn out LSU players, and Paul Mubenga, I think he was only rated a 3-star or something like that, but I feel watching his tape, he's at least a solid 4. And another great pickup, for LSU, who needed to get that depth there.
So Mubenga's at 6'4", 280, 63rd rated offensive tackle in the country out of Buford, Georgia. And then a couple days prior to that, another guy I don't think we got your take on, at least after the commitment, is Caleb Jackson, the running back out of Baton Rouge, right there.
Oh, wow.
Campus, top 5 position player in the country.
Hot take alert, Mark. Hot take alert. Caleb Jackson might be the most important commitment of Brian Kelly's 2023 class right now. Because for all the questions, all the doubts, can Brian Kelly recruit in Louisiana? Can Brian Kelly recruit? That proved it right there. When Caleb Jackson, who was, almost, I'd say 3/4 of a foot out the door to Tuscaloosa, and they turned that around starting just in June, it seems. Obviously, the relationship started once they got their feet wet here in the staff, so a few months longer than that, obviously. But Frank Wilson worked his magic and was able to really, show off the brand of LSU, for at least when it comes to Louisiana kids. Showing out for your state, staying home, your grandmother being able to come see you play, your parents, a quick drive to come see you play. It's priceless. And that's also part of the package that they can sell. And Caleb Jackson, a huge pickup, because you look at LSU's running back class, him and Trey Holly, the first 2 Louisiana running backs LSU's gotten commitments from since 2019's class with John Emery Jr. and Ty Davis Price. That's an unbelievable gap there of not getting commitments from or signing Louisiana running backs. So to get those two, the 2 best in Louisiana, and I would argue two of the top 10 running backs in the country, Trey Holly and Caleb Jackson, absolutely racking up numbers, breaking records. Especially Trey Holly is about to break the Louisiana high school all-time record in yards and possibly touchdowns as well, held by Nick Brissett this fall. He's within touching distance of just 1,000-yard season, I believe, like 1,200 yards or something like that, to breaking that record. So you have that type of a running back tandem, Trey Holly, and then he's smaller, faster, more agile. Probably Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be a good comparison. And then Caleb Jackson, who, dare I say it, has a touch of Fournette in him, with just that stocky but really tall and lengthy, solid, just steel running style. Just breaks through people, violent running. And I think what an awesome 2023 tandem at running back for LSU after some years where some guys transferred. Some guys we still have question marks about, some guys who had some injuries. I still believe in running backs like Armani Goodwin. I still believe that Trey Bradford could contribute to LSU, definitely. But it's really exciting to see LSU get commitments from Caleb Jackson and Trey Holly. But Caleb Jackson, man, I think it's going to just really open the doors in Louisiana, because people were just wondering, can Kelly sell that? And he really sold that at the 11th hour. And that was really impressive to me about Caleb Jackson.
Our guy Eric has an awesome responsibility, and he wields so much power here in the live chat. If he doesn't see and is not satisfied with the number of likes, he will let you know who your team is going to lose to next season if you do not like the video. So like the video, or your team loses to Kansas this coming season, unless, of course, you're Texas. You already lose to Kansas anyway, so we can't do anything about that. So
that was awesome.
Eric brings it. So we appreciate you being here, Eric, Oregon fan. So what was that 2013 LSU Oregon opening night, big game in Dallas, right? Big matchup.
That was the 2011 game.
2011. Leading into that LSU team. I don't think that team gets enough credit for being an all-time great team because of what happened, obviously, the last game, because that team mowed down a great schedule.
I mean, that team had an incredible schedule. It was a historic schedule, I think only bested by LSU's 2019 schedule. I think it was like 5 top 10 teams or something like that, maybe. And then like 7 ranked teams. I could get that wrong. I may be getting that wrong, but it was something in that vein, Mark. It was crazy. Maybe they should have played Oklahoma State in the championship game, you could argue. But, you can't really argue that when LSU loses 21-0. But, the title game, if you go back and watch that footage, our defense, man, they're on the field for like 98% of that game. And I know that, they eventually got busted down by Richardson, and things got out of hand with that touchdown after the field goal contest there, and we're not even able to get over the halfway line. But man, that defense kept us in that game and kept giving our offense the ball back when we really didn't deserve it, with their backs against the wall. And, Tyrann Mathieu making some sick plays that are a little under the radar. Morris Claiborne, Eric Reed flying in there with some sickening hits. I mean, who am I missing? Kevin Minter, that 2011 team was sick. That 2011 team was absolutely frightening, Mark, that defense. When you look at the secondary as well, I mean, they all had really good NFL careers too, and played in Super Bowls. Eric Reed played in Super Bowl with the Niners. Tyrann Mathieu, of course, back-to-back Super Bowls appearances, win with the Chiefs. I think Thorold Simon even went to one with the Seahawks. It was a very deep defense. Craig Loston, Ron Brooks. Defensive line was damn good as well. It's a defense that doesn't get enough credit. The reason that team doesn't get enough credit, obviously, apart from the loss, was we had a really just butt ugly offense that year, Mark. Even though they put up points at times, it was almost too easy with some of the opponents. It's weird what happened in the Georgia game. in the SEC title game. We were losing in that game, and Tyrann Mathieu took the punt return back and changed the entire game. And it went from like 14-3 to 14-10 swing or something like that. And then LSU, I think, scored. It was like 41-14 or something in the final. Like, it just changed the entire game, and LSU really just had an awesome running game that year as well. And then if you look at our receivers, when we can actually get them the ball, we had like freshman Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. on that team. Who else was on that team, man? That team was outrageous, Mark. I'm glad you brought them up. We've got a few articles on the site that really go in depth on how LSU lost the 2011 title game. I believe that is actually the title. It's like a 25-minute read investigation that just goes into every facet of it with all the dirt we know that went on, all the madness, all the greatness, but ultimately ended in historically hellish defeat.
I tend to remember scores. Before I looked this one up, you said 41-14. I believe it was 42-10. That's my guess.
Okay.
Because I tend to remember scores. I believe it was 42-10. Regardless, it doesn't matter. So I can't say a lot for this 22 LSU team in comparison to 2011, except for one thing. I will make a very accurate prediction right now of what will be similar between these two teams, and that's both playing a game in the New Orleans Superdome. So, of course, the season starts against Florida State. Do you like the neutral site? Although, of course, you play Florida State in a couple of years in another neutral site, but again, it's going to be heavily swayed in their direction, I think, in Orlando.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look it up.
So, yeah, I'll double check it. But obviously, this is an LSU crowd, but not necessary. It's not on campus. So, do you like these type of locations for LSU games? The
You
neutral
know, LSU seems to do pretty damn well in these games at neutral sites. So for me, really 9 out of 10, I'm down with it. I really have no problem with it, especially when it's something special like the Superdome. When you get, a lot of players who grew up in New Orleans or just grew up in Louisiana, Saints fans as well as LSU fans. That building means so much, not just for sport, but for life in New Orleans. That building is a lot to represent with Katrina and stuff like that, and it has some really intense vibe to it. How would you not want to play there as someone growing up in the state of Louisiana, or at least playing for LSU? And as a fan, how would you not want to watch the Tigers play in the same building they've won the 2003 title, the 2007 title, competed for, but ultimately lost the 2011 title, and then, of course, the greatest of all time team taking over the 2019 title in that building. So how could you not want to, start the season there, start the Brian Kelly era off there with a New Orleans party, and Florida State, I think, they're making some improvements. They're headed more in the right direction than we've seen, but I really think this is a chance for LSU, if they get the quarterback right, if they get these key positions right, to really flex some muscles and really send a statement here. It's a big opportunity for that chance for them to really take that by the horns and possibly really kind of make a statement of intent.
Again, we want to remind everyone that we are dropping on you an LSU August fall camp live stream kickoff right here at the Voice of College Football, courtesy Lon. We'll have Carter from Power Hour on as well. And that'll be right around August 1st. We will get you a time and a date for that one. But be here for LSU fall camp kickoff right here at the Voice of College Football. And whoever wins the poll, so I threw out a poll, Lon, said, which team that we don't currently have a weekly live stream for, do you want to see us do a fall camp kickoff? Now, as it currently stands, I don't believe LSU is anywhere close to winning that. that poll. I think it's Clemson right now. But so the only promise I make, everyone, is I will deliver a live stream for the team that wins. But we're going to deliver as many live streams as possible. And of course, we want to. LSU is the first one I thought of with boom, get Lon on here. Let's attack fall camp. Let's kick it off in style. Let's set up this quarterback battle and talk to all of you. So it should be a good time.
It's gonna be a hell of a time because I mean, there's so much, there's so many opinions, Mark. There's so many people who are like, no, John Emery's the running back. There's so many people who are like, well, what about transfer Noah Kane, the most productive man walking into the building from Penn State? People talking about, okay, Booty's the number one receiver, but oh, my guy's Malik Neighbors, or my guy's Jack Besh, or my guy's Jeray Jenkins, the wily veteran. He's going to come good and really take it to the next NFL level. There's so many opinions across the board, and of course, the quarterback divides so many LSU fans. There's so many who just like willingly just kind of want Miles to be quarterback because they like he deserves it. He deserves a shot. He came back, he didn't have to. Let's just give it to him. But then there's a rising faction of LSU's fan base, Mark, that are really going for Garrett Nussmeier. There's always going to be the pragmatic kind of analysts who say Jaden Daniels is going to be the guy. Why else would he transfer? And that still could be true, but there's a rising faction within the LSU fan base and within what I'm hearing within the team, that there's just a growing trust and belief in Garrett Nussmeier. And it's just there's so many interesting positions across the board that I want to hear a lot of the fans' opinions on who their guys are. And I think that could be, especially with Carter in the mix and who we think could be breaking out. I think, and especially your takes on where LSU could be going and your takes on who, is Booty going to have that Biletnikoff season, that, season that propels him into the top 5, of the NFL draft, which he probably already belongs next year. But, there's so many questions all over the board, Mark. Even with special teams, who the hell's going to be LSU's kicker? No one's even asking those questions. And we have to replace Cade York and Avery Atkins back there, 2 guys who were so consistent for LSU, touchback machines and 50-plus yard field goal machines. So it's gonna be a hell of a time for the fall camp showdown, kickoff showdown, and everybody join us on that.
While we as football fans want to see as much football as possible, and obviously college football being the one sport, this doesn't happen in baseball. You get spring training games, the NFL preseason, the NBA, you get to see preseason, all of it. Not in college athletics, and certainly not in college football. And while it would be interesting to be able to see these guys in live play, let's say this was the NFL and LSU was going to play 4 preseason games, and they were going to play Oregon State and Kansas State and I don't know, Purdue and, 4 teams that they wouldn't play during the regular season. And we would it would be fun to be able to, of course, evaluate the quarterbacks and say, how are these guys doing? I think that at times gets a little overrated in the NFL, meaning that these guys are going through live reps every day in practice, every day. And then, sometimes they may throw 6 passes in an NFL preseason game and everyone's going crazy about, that ball got tipped or that was a bad decision or look at that beautiful 60-yard throw, and they blow everything out of proportion. And, in college football, it's up to Brian Kelly and to just see what he sees in front of him and make that call without any of us really having, we'll have glimpses. We'll have little tidbits to go on, of course. Word will get back that, Nussmeier threw 2 picks in the red zone yesterday at practice or whatever it turns out to be. And we'll get some video clips, but really nothing that we should be able to make any kind of clear judgment or evaluation on.
No, I mean, it's really going to be interesting how they're going to decide this quarterback, Mark, because it's going to be probably a group decision with Joe Sloan. And Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator, Joe Sloan, quarterback's coach. But I think at the same time, the decision lies with Brian Kelly, and it's going to be the guy who most fits the ethos of the offense they want to run. And the ethos of the offense they want to run, it relies on a quarterback who's able to move. Is that Miles Brennan? I don't think it is. And I think this fall camp, it's going to be really interesting to see if Miles Brennan can show any of that. I know that he's probably got the tip of the veteran hat, but like you said, Mark, it can be really tough evaluating the best quarterback here. But they're going to have footage of everything. They're going to be studying everything down, and I think it's also going to come down to who is the best, locker room guy as well.
Absolutely.
It seems like, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, it seems like Nussmeier really connects with a lot of, like, pretty much almost every sector of the team, from, veterans to the young guys. It seems like Nussmeier really, for me, connects well with the team. Sorry, Mark, interrupted you.
No worries, Lon. So when you look at this 22 team and just look at the depth on the roster, the talent on the first and second teams, all of it put together, and we're not going to try to put this team up against a ridiculous standard of a national championship LSU type team, but your standard LSU contending team in the SEC that wins 9 or 10 games, is a top 10 team in the country, top 15 at worst, something like that. Where does this team lack that a typical LSU team would be stronger? At least before we've seen football, it could change, but based on what you anticipate happening and based on the talent and the experience in the various units.
Yeah, that's hard to say because, I want to say just, of course, defensive back, because there's just so much uncertainty there. Whether these transfers are going to really deliver, or these transfers are they going to be, like, say, for example, Greg Brooks and Joe Fouché, they were starting and kicking ass, taking names for Arkansas for a few years there. Are they going to pick up where they left off at LSU? Probably the safe bet is that they would. Jarek Bernard Converse, coming over as an all Big 12 player from Oklahoma State. Is he going to pick up where he left off? It's interesting because he also got hurt too, Mark. He got hurt right there during spring practice, one that we were actually at. LSU Odyssey were in attendance, and he actually looked good before he got hurt. So, Sevian Banks at Ohio State as well there at DB. There's a lot of, like, uncertain talent. Of course, they've got veterans like Jay Ward, who's someone they can depend on, someone who Matt House was recruiting when at his time in Kentucky. And Jay Ward flipped after he committed to Kentucky when Matt House was the defensive coordinator there, and flipped and went to LSU. And now here their paths are crossing again, and it might be Jay Ward and Mike Jones Jr., a combination of the two, calling signals for the defense. But as far as, like, nickel, you got Greg Brooks Jr., Sage Ryan, who are going to be playing such a very important position for this team. Linebacker, it feels like outside of Mike Jones Jr., Greg Penn III, Micah Baskerville, is Colby Fields going to show up? I think he might. He's a Louisiana guy who could really come good. It might take a year for him to, but I think he's going to turn out to be a good LSU player. Defensive line is solid. The offensive line maybe has some questions. Is freshman Will Campbell going to start at left tackle for LSU? I mean, that'd be very interesting to have a freshman start at left tackle in the SEC. I mean, that's just bizarre, and it might be happening with LSU here in 2022 with Will Campbell. Although there's a ton of competition, it's really, like, for me, the uncertainty with this team and whether certain position groups will prosper over others and where the weaknesses are. it's really going to depend on the position battles and how they go, how everything how everything turns out. But so far, offensive line worries the hell out of me where that will shape out. Defensive back has to worry you just because there's so many dominoes yet to fall, and it's really interesting is where they will, because what combination. I feel like Mekhi Garner probably has that cornerback spot on the left sealed. But as far as who will join him on the right, that is a huge rat race. You could even move Jay Ward out to corner as well, his old spot. But I think they're going to use him at free safety, where he's been really excelling the last year and a half. But offensive line, DB, it's quarterback as well. You got to get this position right. It's if you went with Miles Brennan, I think it would be a safe pick. I think it would be not showing enough gumption to win in the SEC. Jaden Daniels, that would be a pick that I feel like he would have to show a lot more growth in his passing range and ability and strength through August to impress me enough to be confident of him being an LSU starter in 2022. But Nussmeier, from what I've seen so far, seems to be the full package, but it's so many variables, Mark, so many variables. Nussmeier has to bring it this August as well. It's gonna be a bloodbath for a quarterback. But there are a lot of uncertainties, and there are some possible potential weaknesses. And like I said just a bit ago, special teams you have to say is a possible potential weakness, because it's really uncertain what we're gonna do there.
So whether you're in the live chat right now or you're watching us once the video records and posts, join the Discord. If you're in the live chat right now, Eric will tell you, Tim will tell you, One Scoop John will tell you, Exploring with Ben, he was in here earlier, he'll tell you we have a good time in the Discord. So it's basically this live chat right here, multiply it nonstop 24/7, 365. Discord at the Voice of College Football. You just go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV. You join Patreon. I get you the Discord link. I welcome you with open arms. You get a nice, fuzzy, warm welcome aboard letter from me, a little certificate, and you join the Voice of College Football community, and then you can talk to all of us on Discord. And in addition to this, these guys are phenomenal. Between again Tim and Eric and One Scoop John, you got all sorts of people. You got Joey. They do after show streams, after show parties on there. They're going to do watch parties during the football season this year. So we had a couple join today. So more people in Discord, and we've got a chat that is specific to the SEC, chat specific to the Big 12, the Big 10, every conference. And as we grow and there's more conversation, we can make as many chats as you guys want. So let's say, Oklahoma, that becomes a big deal. So we could do an Oklahoma chat, or we could do just a chat on the LSU Florida State game in week 1. We can do all sorts of things. And again, we've got watch parties over there planned. And then also, of course, after show parties as well. So it's a good time. Appreciate everybody thinking of that. Join us on Discord. Even more important than that, LSU fans, and even just college football fans that want to make sure that you are, if you are the nerds that I think you are and the geeks for college football, because you're here, then you want to keep up with the best programs, right? Get on over to LSU Odyssey, check out some unique work on Lon. I will tell you that from the conversations we've had over the years, and the conversations we've had off the air, and then combine that with what I've seen from you on LSU Odyssey. Again, the connections that you form with the players before they become collegiate players, when they're still high school student athletes, when they're in college, post-college, their cousins, their aunts, their uncles, their best buddies, their school classmates, whomever you can find to talk to find out more about these players. you're able to dig these people up, and it's pretty phenomenal.
Well, I mean, it's about really getting the best sources for the stories that people want to hear and people want to find out about, and that's really sharing these student athletes stories, sharing their lives. I want to show the human side, really, Mark. That's what I feel is lost too much in sports, sports writing, sports journalism, is the human element here. I feel like a lot of it's become numbers and just meat. People are meat to the system with a human recruiting machine grinder, and I try and bring something that kind of defies that. Something with I try and bring something with a little more heart to it. But try. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. But
Very cool. Lon, we appreciate you being here. And again, everybody head on over to LSU Odyssey. And again, keep in mind, we're going to do an LSU fall camp kickoff right around the 1st of August. We'll get you the dates on that. And we've got a super chat coming in from our guy, Will. Appreciate Will being here. Of course, says, as an Irish fan, not a Brian Kelly fan, especially at the end, but at least he will manage the clock better than Les Miles and Ed Ogeron. Game management.
yes, 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 yes. Wow, Les Miles. Good God.
I miss Les for a few different reasons. I miss, the zaniness, the grass chewing, and just the he'd say some crazy things that were either would make you, sometimes would make you cringe, other times would make you kind of endear yourself to him a little bit. That I think the one thing he had going for him is that he was an authentic kind of guy, at least on the
Right.
surface, and his players loved him and they ran through a wall for him, most of them. Uh, but I do miss Les Miles as well as a content creator, because he supplied me with about 5 or 6 game situations a year that I could just pounce on and be like, look at that. Why did he do that? I can go to town on that.
And that is why LSU faithful, anyone who gives a damn about LSU, is glad to see him gone. It's not just what he was doing wrong on the field, on the sidelines, but off the field as well. And it's the culture he created, a culture of weird silence from the players. The players
Yeah.
were very scared to talk to the media. But then Les Miles was full of a bunch of gaffes all the time, and he gave everybody a lot of content, and he made LSU look embarrassing at times, though, and so it's a new era at LSU. To I it is kind of funny to see how Les Miles went from a hero everyone loved his zany weirdness to what he's become in the minds of LSU fans, but it's all about he regressed LSU with his coaching hires, his offensive philosophy. There was so much talent LSU could have taken advantage of, and it felt like they never came close to what they could have done. So many great players from that era.
Isn't it strange how that quirkiness, zaniness, all of that goes from being kind of a fun thing when you think it's harmless, when you think, oh, this is just his personality. He's just a different kind of dude and it's fun to watch. And let's see what he's going to say next. To when there's kind of bad things going on behind the scenes, and then you get that kind of quirkiness, zaniness, goofiness, then you're like, it goes from being funny and amusing and a little endearing to kind of cringeworthy.
Yes, and that's what happened, Mark. That's what happened. There was times where Les Miles would do something. I was like, okay, it was kind of ridiculous, but the way he did it, okay, whatever. And then there's just he got to be very cringeworthy and very weird, and just it really hurt LSU's brand, in my opinion. And luckily, someone like Coach Ed Orgeron came by. Was able to restore that brand a bit more than Les Miles, and especially get some of the Louisiana culture back in there and going. And it just seemed like Les Miles, without someone like Frank Wilson on his staff, was lost. Would have been absolutely just screwed, Mark.
All right, folks, one more time. We've got an LSU kickoff show planned with Lon and Carter from LSU Power Hour. We're going to have that somewhere around August 1st. Just make sure you got those bell for the notifications opened up so you get that date and time. In the meantime, LSU Odyssey, get on over there. We'll bring up the banner right here. Follow Lon on Twitter as well at Lon Phillips. And anything else we need to know, Lon?
That's it. And you know what? I just feel like there's maybe a bit more respect for what Brian Kelly's bringing to LSU and a bit more understanding of where he's headed, whether there's skepticism or not. I think this was a win today for LSU.
My household is in an upheaval right now, not in a bad or negative way, just things need to get organized and tearing things up and all that sort of thing, packing, moving, doing all those sorts of things. So I need to focus on that, but also I'm at my destination, everyone. So I've been a little off the grid for 3 or 4 days, as much as I am. For a lot of newcomers, they don't really notice me being off the grid because they see a video out there every day or two and figure, this guy's creating content. But for the old timers, they're like, oh, if there's not 5 videos delivered every day, they think there's something wrong. So everything's good, and we were going full throttle toward college football season, everyone. So lock it in. We've got a lot to put together, and appreciate everybody's support. Lon, we always appreciate your insight, your knowledge. It's always a good time. Good to hear from you.
Mark, always a great time. And man, what's that feeling? What's that smell? It's football season, baby. Let's go.
We got a big Tuesday lined up, everyone. We've got USC at 4, Iowa at 5:30, Nebraska at 7 Eastern time. So again, let me find the banner here. Got a big Tuesday lined up as always. I believe I'm on the Michigan podcast. That's usually an every week. Sometimes it's an every week. At times it turns into an every other week. So I don't know what Steve Dace has planned for us on Michigan podcast. I usually get that email at some point. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be on Michigan podcast. I'll find that out soon. I'll check my email. Michigan podcast, possibly featuring myself on with Steve Dace. So we had a good episode last week where Steve unveiled 25 somewhat outlandish predictions. I found them entertaining, enlightening, interesting, intriguing, all those things. And I took my shot at them. So check out that Michigan podcast with Steve Dace and myself from last week. And again, as you see down in the banner below, we've got a busy Tuesday, as we always do here at the Voice of College Football, in addition to my taping of Michigan podcast, I believe. 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific, Matt Zemek, myself, USC Live. That's always a great show, phenomenal show. USC Live, get there on the USC channel. Every so often, I will simulcast just to kind of wake up and shake up some people on the main channel to say, hey, we got a USC channel, or we got a Florida State channel, or fill in the blank. So I will do that at some point, maybe week 1 of the season. We'll blast away on the main channel with all our team live streams, just to remind everyone we got an Ohio State channel, got a Penn State channel. We got all these channels because sometimes I'm a bit taken back that people that have been watching for quite some time are like, Mark, you've got like a Florida channel and you got an Alabama channel and you got these team channels? Yes. So for those of you that are only subscribed here to the main channel, we produce so much more content than what you see here on the main channel. So for example, sometime tonight, I'm going to look at today and yesterday's 2023 signing day commits, the commits that have come back in the last 2 days. I know Georgia's got a big one, Alabama's got a big one, and there's a few others out there, and I'll produce videos for those channels. And so we're going full throttle with all these channels, and so we appreciate your help. I have sometimes, because of that, neglected the main channel from time to time. I would love to post. My goal should be to produce one really strong video here every day on the main channel, because that would make the main channel really grow. Because I've noticed if I can put some time and attention into one strong video every day on the main channel, then we take off. So I will attempt to do that, but it's a bit difficult trying to keep these 25 channels going. But I should make that a priority. We appreciate everybody latching on to our summer festival schedule, which right here means that we are live with call-in shows. And this has been interrupted the last few days, but we've been pretty much on track since like the end of May. Monday at noon, Thursday at 6, Friday at 9 Eastern time, call-in shows right here at the Voice of College Football. You know what I would love to do once we get to college football season? I can't guarantee this, but I really believe we should do a call-in show every freaking day. We should have a call-in show with all of you every freaking day, night, whenever. So we'll see if we can do that or something close to that. I can't promise because, of course, Saturday is full throttle for like 14 hours. So appreciate everybody being here at the Voice of College Football. We'll see you down below. Look, Tuesday. See you at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific, USC Live over on the USC channel. HR Picking Stuff, thank you so much for subscribing at the USC channel. Really, as it stands right now on the team channels, Florida's close to 1,000, about 850. LSU's close to 1,000, about 850. And the West Virginia channel, as Joey will tell you, is always a priority. We're at about 600 subs on the West Virginia channel, so we want to get those to 1,000. 1,000 is huge. Once you get to 1,000, YouTube basically looks at your channel as, okay, they put in the time, they put in the content, because you got to reach a certain number of hours, which we never have an issue with. You got to reach a certain number of hours of content plus the 1,000 subs. And then YouTube looks at you as, okay, you know what? We'll give you a chance and we'll start pushing your videos out there. So we need to get to 1,000 subs on all the channels, but specifically we're close on West Virginia, Florida, and LSU. So help us out there. We'll get there with your help. Appreciate it. And I guess these boys are going to strike up a live. Oh, we got Tim asking me for this. If you could see, I would not want to show you. This room is a complete disaster. So I'm in the process of a move. There's a zillion things to do. And I already have a zillion things to do because we want to get ready for college football season. And I haven't posted a video since like Thursday. And it's almost Tuesday. So I posted a video on the main channel. So I got to get to work, boys. I got to get to work. And we will get together sometime soon to work out our season plans. Okay. Also, yeah, I've got so much work to do. It's making my head spin already thinking about it because a lot of it's not even content related. So appreciate you being here. Voice of College Football, and we will see you Tuesday.